Welcome everyone to this explainer. Today, we've got a very specific goal. We are going to take the abstract, honestly kind of complex world of web automation, and we're going to explain it precisely, transforming it into a crystal clear mental model. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by technical jargon, well, you're in the right place. We're going to break down exactly how these systems work behind the scenes so you can start building with absolute confidence. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll hit the language of web, webhooks, the waiting phone, understanding NAN core concepts, how data flows precisely, and finally, building your AI agents.
So here's the fundamental question we absolutely have to answer before we even think about touching an automation canvas. How do different apps actually talk to each other without us writing a single line of code? It might feel like pure magic when your email instantly talks to your spreadsheet, but it's actually just a very precise, clear set of rules. We have to understand exactly how data moves across the internet first. Let's start with Section 1, the language of web, defining the core vocabulary of internet communication.
Right, an API. You hear this acronym thrown around constantly, but basically it acts as the foundational doorway to a service like OpenAI, Facebook, or Notion. You can't just barge right into their server room, you have to go through their defined interface, and you have to follow their strict rules.
I love this because this restaurant analogy hits the nail on the head. Just like a menu, an API tells you exactly what's available. You can't order a pizza at a sushi restaurant, and you definitely can't ask the Airtable API to generate an AI image for you. You have to order what they actually serve exactly how they expect you to ask for it.
So if the API is the menu, the HTTP request is the actual waiter taking your specific order to the kitchen. When you want to pull a list of customers, you send a GET request. When you want the AI to generate some new text, you send a POST request. If you want to change an existing record, you PUT, and to remove one, you delete. It's just a highly standardized way of asking for precisely what you need.
This brilliantly illustrates the whole dynamic. The menu, the API, just sits there completely passively. It doesn't do a thing until you engage with it. The waiter, which is your HTTP request, does all the active, proactive work of taking your instructions, traveling over to the API, and bringing the requested data right back to your table.
Section 2. Webhooks, the waiting phone. Understanding real-time passive web communication.
So what happens when we don't want to constantly ask the waiter if our food is ready? Say you set an automation to check for new emails every single minute using an HTTP request. That is literally like knocking on a door 1,400 times a day, just asking, anything new? Anything new? It's exhausting, and it wastes massive computing credits. A webhook, however, is simply a unique URL that acts like a waiting phone number. It sits completely idle until the very millisecond the other app calls it with new data.
And that is precisely why webhooks are an absolute game changer for modern automation. If a customer submits a form or, say, an AI video generation finishes processing, a webhook catches that data and pushes your workflow forward in real time with zero wasted effort.
Section 3. Understanding NAN core concepts, bringing web communication onto a visual canvas. Building an NN workflow completely replaces the need for writing complex code by following a highly precise logical sequence. First, you set up a trigger to start the flow, like a schedule or a webhook. Then, you add an action node to do the actual work. Finally, you just connect them visually, passing the data smoothly from step 1 directly into step 2. Think of each node on the canvas as its own isolated workstation. One node's entire job might just be extracting text from an invoice. Once that exact task is done, it passes the baton to the next workstation. And actually, here's a fun fact straight from our sources. In NNN, when you're testing these nodes to make sure your workflow functions properly, those test executions don't cost you a single dime against your monthly quota. You can test and tweak the whole shebang as much as you want.
Section 4. How data flows precisely. Demystifying JSON and item-by-item processing.
Now that we have our nodes, we have to understand exactly how data travels between them. Otherwise, you'll hit a ceiling real fast. When an API or an AI model gives us data, it usually just spits out raw text. So we use a format called JSON to structure that data so our software knows precisely what to do with it. You just need to know the difference between an object, which is a single item, like one employee's file, and an array, which is a structured list containing multiple objects, like a roster of 5 employees.
Let's see how this builds into a massive fundamental rule to remember. Just like envelopes moving down a conveyor belt, NN processes arrays item by item. If you feed an array of 5 customer records into an email node, that node is going to fully execute 5 individual times, processing each envelope separately before triggering the next step in your workflow. Grasping this precise flow is absolutely crucial.
Finally, Section 5, Building Your AI Agents, Orchestrating the Ultimate Automated Assistant. We're taking all this web language and culminating it into AI agents. A lot of people think an AI agent is just a chatbot. It's really not. It's a sophisticated system built from these 4 specific components working in perfect harmony. The trigger receives the prompt, the brain figures out what to do, the memory provides the context, and the tools, well, they go out and actually do the work.
The brain is your large language model. And what's incredible here is that you aren't locked into just one. By using API services like OpenRouter, you can easily swap out different brains. You could use OpenAI for one agent and Claude for another, dynamically choosing the smartest model for the specific task at hand.
But the true magic happens right here with the tools. Because you understand APIs and HTTP requests now, you can connect one single agent to 10 different software tools. You can give an agent a single prompt, and based on its own logic, it can read a Google Doc, draft a reply in Gmail, and log a new record in Airtable, triggering a whole cascade of real-world actions all on its own.
You now have the exact blueprint. You understand precisely how apps communicate through APIs, how they patiently listen via webhooks, and how data strictly flows item by item across an automation canvas. The technology is absolutely no longer a black box to you, so the only limit left is your imagination. Now that you've got this mental model, what automated agent are you going to build first?